Hello and welcome to The New Journey, a show by Settlefast that empowers and inspires newcomers and new Canadians through conversations, stories, and insights. From a Syrian refugee to a successful Canadian entrepreneur in Canada's East Coast, armed with nothing but sheer grit and positivity in the middle of a crisis, he inspired millions around the world. In today's episode of The New Journey, I'm pleased to welcome Tareq Hadhad, CEO of Peace by Chocolate. Passionate about global peace and entrepreneurship, his family relaunched the family business in Canada, and their story turned into an international inspiring phenomenon. Tariq has done over 500 interviews with news teams across the globe. You have a movie deal, a book deal, a podcast deal. You're a keynote speaker, and you who talks about his journey, the positive impact of newcomers, and the spirit of entrepreneurship. Welcome to the show, Tariq.
Thank you very much for having me. It's absolutely my pleasure and my honor.
So first of all, before I begin our conversations about, your current work that you do in the communities and inspiring millions around the globe, can you take us back to your life in Syria? How was it growing up in Syria?
Well, I'm not quite sure if anyone will listening really have been to Syria before, but it is an absolutely beautiful country. It is one of the most beautiful places that anyone really can visit, and the major aspect of our lives in Syria were about being infused within history and culture and civilization, and very rich heritage that we had there, especially in Damascus, one of the oldest, most ancient places on the entire planet. So yeah, our lives were all about family. There was a proverb that my grandmother used to tell us all the time: at time of test, family is best. So yeah, she was true. She was absolutely right, and I think that's really the main thing that I remember from Syria is how do we surpass challenges altogether. There are, I think, many amazing opportunities that we have had as family members, community members. And I remember since I was born that the passion for our family at that time to not only rebuild the business in Syria into different areas, into different aspects, into different missions, because it was evolving by the time since 1986, since the start date, but also to speak highly to the values that they were also evolving within the family and the community, from being so much focused on expanding to a lot about the community and how can we be there for those who were less fortunate into the community in Syria, and I've been very privileged to have lived such a peaceful life in Syria with my family until the war broke out in 2011. And since then, life has never been the same. So it just taught us a lot of key messages and key learnings since then, which is that we have to keep going and we have to learn from our past and make our future a brighter one, and not settle down. We need to make sure we are there for first for each other, and second for those that we can help, that they need our help. And especially, Syria is a great example about the sense of hospitality and welcome, because we have welcomed Iraqi refugees, Palestinian refugees, Armenian refugees, people from Europe who came to Syria during the Second World War. And it was incredible really to live such a life with a lot of my family members who were always there for us. And yeah, it's quite the journey that we had there, because sometimes you forget the blessings and the privileges that you have when you are living through them. So really, until you lose that sense, really, when you start reflecting on it. So it changed a lot about the way we look at the future for everything, not only for the family and not only for the country, but also in terms of the sense of a place to call home, and what does really home mean afterwards, right? So Syria, I always say Syria was my home by birth. Canada now is my home by choice. No one chooses where to be born. Like, you did not choose where you were born, and I did not choose where I was born, and we should not be judged, I guess, but we should be celebrated instead, really about the places where we are from. And I think it's all about that human personality. Every human is different, but at the same, we are very similar in the way that we want to have an impact on other people's lives and have a peaceful life and a bright future. That's really the common goal between each one of us, no matter what's our background, no matter what's our faith, no matter who we love, no matter really any other things that seem as barriers between us as human beings. But instead, really, it's something that we need to connect further. So Syria taught me all of that. It's that we need to accept everyone as they are. We need to accept everyone and celebrate them because everyone is an asset and everyone is a treasure and everyone has something to contribute and to give. So within living in Syria and learning from my grandparents and living and seeing them every day until my grandfather passed away in 2005, and learning everything was absolutely critical because we always need to know where we came from to know where we are going.
And I know, being a newcomer myself, it's not easy for people to leave everything behind. Leave their families, leave their homes that they have lived in through their lives. And if you have a business also, it's a big thing that you have to leave and sacrifice. What was that moment that that made you take that hard decision to leave Syria?
It was a family choice. It was a family decision at the end of the day to um, just not be killed in a war we didn't want to become part of, not have to memorize, all of the hardships and that we have to endure in Syria at that time. But it was the last, I think, choice that we had, to be honest, because no other option was on the table at that time, whether we stay there and die or whether we leave. So we just decided to leave and not become numbers on the screen of the media at that time because no one was telling you the names of the people who were killed. And no one really tells you the names of the people who are killed in any war. No one really mentions them, right? Because if you are sitting here in Canada and hearing about Afghanistan or Syria or Iraq or anywhere in the world where there is conflict, when there is war, you only hear the numbers. So many people will tell you, well, 200 people were killed in Syria on March 15th in 2012, and no one really tells you who these people were. Everyone was living for purpose and for a reason, and it was all gone, and that potential is gone. So it was that decision that we made is we didn't want to become part of the war. We didn't want to become a fuel to that war, and we didn't want to miss any family member at the dinner table the next day. So it was a decision we were forced to take. It was not an easy decision for sure. My grandfather used to say, immigration can be harder than death. So it was really tough time. And I remember came back to the family after what really led to that decision in the first place is that in 2012 we had our house, our building was burnt, it was stolen, then was bombed. And then a few months after, the factory was as well was destroyed in an airstrike. And a few months after, the war just reached Damascus, and we just almost killed by a mortar rocket. So I told my family it's not time to do business. For me personally, which I had the passion to become a doctor in Syria as well, and I said it's not time to do medicine. This is the time to survive. So yeah, it was really a family decision, and it was not based on the idea that immigration itself is not a life goal. It's not a purpose. It's not um, something that we take as if we were on vacation. It's something that we are forced to do. It's something we are forced to live through. And for any country around the world that they are listening to this, please know that no one was born to immigrate, right? Everyone was born to live in their homeland, and becoming a refugee or becoming an immigrant or that's something no one wanted. No one was born. And you ask any kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? No one at 6 years old would tell you, well, I hope to become an immigrant, or no one tell you, I hope to become a refugee, right? Because this is not something anyone wants to, right? And a lot of people forget that. A lot of people just think that this is this is part of the choices that people would have, while it is really something that is the last choice, and it can be harder than a lot of people would prefer dying than really leaving and having to restart from scratch like newborn babies. If you tell someone in Canada, would you go anywhere around the world where you don't speak the language, where they don't have your food, where they don't have your culture, you have to live there by yourself and all of that? A lot of people would say no. A lot of people would just say this is really tough. So this is how we should look at others. This is how we should compare our own privileges to other people suffering around the world. And certainly, leaving Syria at that time was a moment that had changed everything in the trajectory of our lives moving forward. And there's nothing to regret, but there's a lot to reflect on.
I think that's a beautiful summary there. There's nothing to regret, but lots to reflect there. So you come to Canada as a refugee. Were there any concerns in your mind, or how was your initial days in Canada? Was it very challenging, like most newcomers, or did it come easy to you?
Well, it was lovely. I really, really enjoyed my first days in Canada, and still call myself a newcomer. Playing the newcomer card every time possible. So, although I've been here now 6 years, so it was really amazing because we have got a lot of support from the community, from the people around us, from who rallied and be behind us because they believe that we, as the newcomers, have brought something unique and special and remarkable, and they wanted to learn about us. They wanted to learn about our story. They wanted to hear about our journey and why did we end up where we are today, because they were absolutely supportive to the mission of my family. And you know what? As a newcomers usually look at things with different lens, and what we need to do is we need to look at everything as newcomers with open minds. This is absolutely what we need to do. Is if we open our minds, if we open our hearts and accept the new realities that we are in, things become easier because so many times the cultural shock of newcomers to a new place can blind them to the reality of the size of the opportunity in any new place. So this is something I speak a lot to newcomers, is that don't be too judgmental about the new place from the first look, from the first impression, whether it's positive or negative. But just always remember to build your impressions, to build your feedback, to build your insights based on the long term, not the short run. And take off the glasses of looking at things within dollar signs, or within where do you think that this place is going only to benefit you materialistically. Also, there you have to find a sense of community. If you don't find it, you cannot do anything, and building that community around you is absolutely critical for your long-term success. So if you don't find that community around you, you need to move. And we are human beings. We have legs. We don't have roots like trees. So we have legs for a reason. So don't be stuck, right? You need to move, and you need to find yourself in a new place. And if you don't have an opportunity, build it. Like there's no really limits to what human beings can accomplish. And we have seen that from our own stories. A lot of people really forget that they themselves also have stories. Like a lot of people be like, sorry, I had a very normal life. Like, I graduated high school, went to university, then got hired, and that's it. No, this is not the true story, right? Because you have to reflect on the connections you have built along the way. What did you learn from all of these experiences, and where do you think this is all going to lead in the next 5 to 10 years or 40 years from now, which will not be the same. If you did not meet that person at that point in time, then probably did not learn that lesson that's going to impact your life 10 years after, right? So a lot of people forget about that. And I think everyone really need to Make sure that they all learn about, if they learn, they need to learn about themselves before they need to learn about others, and get inspired about by themselves first, because a lot of people forget that themselves, they have gone through a lot. Like, some people now ask me about the difference between going through a pandemic or versus going through a war, and I'm like, during the pandemic, certainly it's nothing compared to living in a war, but it is still a crisis. And if we made it until now, then you are a survivor. You are a hero. Like, you really have survived a lot. Being locked in for now almost 2 years, and losing a lot of connections and time and energy and fun and travels and all the plans that they were put on holds, and people's lives were destroyed and all of that. So yes, you made it. And a lot of people just forget that by reflecting on their own experience, they can learn a lot themselves. So I truly encourage people to do that. And so many people just think that they have made it here so far by default. No, you always know that not a lot of people have made it. So if you did, then you are a true hero. So, and reflecting on that is very important for anyone to really keep moving forward. And that's really what helped us. Because if we were under the mindset that nothing can be rebuilt after losing it, then we wouldn't be here today. We would be just sitting there in a refugee camp somewhere and counting down to death, right? So it's always good to have a positive attitude towards life in general, especially if you have been through a crisis. And that's really what I want people to reflect on, and I want them to always be open to the idea of being a newcomer. Which doesn't mean, by the way, newcomer doesn't mean that you have to travel and leave everything behind and arrive in a new country 8,000 kilometers away from your home birth. A newcomer can be to a job. You're a newcomer to an experience. You're a newcomer to education. You're a newcomer to a family. You're a newcomer to anything really in life. So redefining a newcomer aspect is very important. But in short, about Canada, which is, in my eyes, in my opinion, my family's journey, I truly believe this is the greatest country on the planet. It has a lot of potential to offer to people to uh, celebrate who they are, regardless of anything. Not really as a way to just to think of our differences as of less. So many people say, well, I just came here 6 years ago, so should I be expressing my opinions on Twitter about a recent political issue? I'm like, yes, absolutely, because I'm living through it. It doesn't matter whether I've been here 6 years or a month or I was born here. And this is really what Canada is all about, right? It's like you become part of the country the moment you arrive. The moment I landed in Canada, I was just treated like a Canadian citizen, and I was treated if I was born here and just flew away for decades of my life and brought back here. So this is really the key for integration, I think, for newcomers as well. Which, by the way, the journey for integration can be filled with a lot of pumps along the way, which those pumps have to be faced some way. And there are two ways to face any challenge as a newcomer to a country, and there's no third one. The two choices are whether you sit down and complain and say you can't do anything, or whether you dig down and find solutions. So it's much easier to complain, much easier to complain about anything than trying to make changes. So don't be from the complainer club. I think join the digging club and try to find the solutions for any issue that you might have, because I think there are unlimited options really. If you have that mindset of always trying to move forward to instead of really just moving on and leaving things as they were, I think a lot can change in anybody's life. So yes, it's not life is not always beautiful and rosy. It can be challenging. It can have a lot of pain, but I think we need to learn how to overcome that. And by connecting, by learning, by growing, by evolving, I think that's all really possible. And I'm in no way really to compare my own experiences with other people, because everyone has their own experiences. I'm trying to share from my perspective of where we are today, how things can be better for everyone. And I hope that people really can share their stories with me, share their stories with everyone, because that's how we all really be able to reflect on each other's.
Switching gears now. So, after your initial days, you start a business. And as an entrepreneur, for any entrepreneur, whether it is a newcomer or whether it is, somebody who's born here and, had all the resources, it's always going to be challenging. Starting up a business is never, never easy. How did Peace by Chocolate happen? Was it something in the back of your mind because you had that business, family business, previously, or was there a defining moment, that made you, launch
I
Peace
had
by
no idea
Chocolate?
that I would be sitting here 6 years after arriving in Canada talking to you about Peace by Chocolate when I arrived in Canada. For sure not. So, it just all happened because we really wanted to find a way to give back. I think that's really the main thing. And giving back has many different ways to do, especially for newcomers. So whether people they want to go to school again, whether they want to just do a job, or they want to start a life here, or go back to their homeland for a couple months, then come back to Canada. It's different lifestyles, it's different approaches, it's different goals for newcomers when they come here. So for me personally, it was like I'm here for the long run. I'm here in Canada. I'm a proud permanent resident, and I'm becoming Canadian citizen. So we need to start something to give back to the community. And then I was like, started writing down what assets do we have. Like I started realizing that as a newcomers, you don't lose your skills, you don't use your talent when you arrive in a new place, you don't lose your purpose. You can be just restarting again, and you don't have to start from scratch because all of these are your intellectual properties that you can start with. So yeah, you just need to find the right people around you, and I think we were lucky that the community has certainly been the greatest help for us, the community of Antigonish. And yeah, it's Peace by Chocolate started as a way because it's a cause really to spread peace and peaceful messages more than a business. And that cause entails many initiatives and campaigns that we have run since the start of the company in 2016 until now. The partnerships that we have made, it's all really because anyone can go to a grocery store, to a chocolate shop, and buy lots and lots of chocolate. Like the word, the country does not need really, like, a chocolate brand, right? Like they need more a peace brand. Everyone needs more a peace brand, right? And then we were like, interesting, because we know how to make chocolate and we had just happened to survive a war. So why don't we spread peace through each piece of chocolate that we make? And it's a different approach, for a lot of brands and companies that they don't care about the triple bottom lines. They just really want to build companies based on selling products that they just believe it will make them money. That's really the goal for a lot of businesses, unfortunately. While for us it was much different. It's much easier, and it's much easier to follow the easy route. It's to just be commercial and just to be based on consumerism. Like you very easy. There is a huge market for that. A lot of people follow that route, but we are seeing that a huge increase in brand awareness for people who are interested in learning the stories behind each product. Like, why am I buying this chocolate bar versus this chocolate bar? Although this product might be, not comparable to the other. And I think it all comes back to, do you believe in the brand that you are supporting? Do you believe this brand is making a difference? Do you believe this brand is giving back? Do you believe this brand cares about people? Do you believe this brand cares about the environment? Do you believe this brand is donating proceeds to non-for-profit organizations, which we have started in 2016, partnering with the Red Cross, Canadian Mental Health Association, Refugee Hub, Indigenous communities across Canada, and many other associations here in the province and nationally. So a lot of people now are asking themselves that question is, am I putting my money in the right place to buy a product that that is available in different formats, in different forms that can be very life-changing for many people. Like, to buy the same thing, but if you know that this business is making an impact in the society, wouldn't you love to support it more than supporting something that is made somewhere overseas that you will never really know how long it's been sitting in a container or in the ocean? Because this is really the reality of our consumption these days. Is like really people are being more aware of these topics. So why shouldn't we as manufacturers care more about it?
For newcomers and somebody who is looking to start a business in Canada, what advice would you give them? What kind of resources they should be tapping into? What kind of tools they can access? Could you share your tips and advice for newcomers and founders who are in this journey to start a business?
Absolutely. So, first steps would be to identify your market and to know where you are starting and if it makes sense for you to start a business there or somewhere else. Then second is to figure out if your products fit the new market. If you come here with an idea or a product, you need to do testing first, and there's a lot of amazing ways and pilots to do a test to any new product you are launching on a small scale. Do not go on a bigger scale at the beginning because that can be a make or break for you. You really need to grow gradually, and you need to learn how do people react. And collecting feedback is very critical for you as a new business. And now it's much more easier to start a business than 15 or 20 years ago. Now you can imagine how much effort you had to put 20 years ago to get 200 comments or feedback on a product that you are selling. Right now, you can get this for free if you post about your product and take advantage of the internet, social media, the outreach, and the digitalization of the world. And I think it's really critical for entrepreneurs to realize that. And entrepreneurship is like all about being unique and remarkable. So you really need to know how to develop your business based on that strategy. And the other thing certainly is the tools based on your finances. How are you going to start the business? And do you have the capital to do that? If not, always be sure to check in with your local business organizations, non-for-profit organizations, community organizations, government organizations. There's huge support for businesses, especially startups in this country that people don't know about. So make sure to connect with your local chamber of commerce. Make sure to connect with your local member of legislative assembly and member of parliament and all the government people that they will guide you to the funding, to the support, to the training, to any certificate supports and permits that you might need to start doing the job that you need to do. And certainly the last thing when you are just in that startup mindset is you need to network. So you have to always remember, if it's not working, go networking. So networking is absolutely huge for any new business. And for me, when we started Peace by Chocolate, it was a home kitchen based business that we were really starting out at the farmers markets and a table every Saturday from 8:30 until noon. And so many days we were selling out in 10 minutes. So we came back home really early, which were really great days. But then we realized for the sustainability of the business, we need to do more farmers market. And like from the farmers market, we're doing weddings, and from the weddings, we're doing conferences. From conferences, we're doing independent stores, and we went into grocery chains, and we opened our website. That did not all happen overnight. I think one of the key lessons that we need to learn as entrepreneurs as well is be true to the vision and be patient, and everything else will come.
It has been a lovely conversation, Tareq. You have been such an inspiring personality in Canada for all newcomers and newcomers all around the globe. I thank you so much for your time, for sharing your journey and sharing your insights. And wish you all the best with your new ventures, with your podcast, with your book launch, with your movie launch. That's really fantastic. Thank you so much, Tareq.
Thank you very much for having me. It's absolutely my pleasure to be with you.